Hello, I am Lisa Lehman. I am the 17th Ward Democratic Committee Chair, and joining me today is Elizabeth Snyder Fortino, who is a candidate for New York State Supreme Court in the 5th Judicial District. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. I'm hoping that you could start us off with a little bit of an introduction. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a practicing attorney for 24 years. I began at the Legal Aid Society of Mid New York, working with indigent individuals, various practice areas of the law. I then went on to Mental Hygiene Legal Service, where I currently am. I started out as an attorney and now the director of the agency. We serve individuals in psychiatric hospitals, correctional facilities, all the group homes, and we do a lot of end of life matters. And so that's what I do from here to Buffalo. I cover over 65
Wow.
attorneys, and Mental Hygiene Legal Service is an auxiliary agency of the appellate division. And so I've worked in the courts for the last 22 years.
Wow. And so I'm hoping you can help us because our audience here is voters
Mhm.
who maybe sometimes have a fuzzy idea of what judges do in particular kinds of judgeships. But can you talk a little bit about the Supreme Court in New York, what kinds of cases it hears,
Mm.
and the Fifth District, because it's really
Sure.
large.
Sure. Yeah. So this position is in Supreme Court. I'm running for the Justice of Supreme Court, and that's, like you said, of the Fifth Judicial District. And the Fifth Judicial District is made up of six counties. That is Jefferson, Lewis, Oneida, Oswego, Onondaga, and Herkimer. And so the position that's available right now, there's four of them. And so there's several of us that are running for this position. Supreme Court is, many don't realize, but it's our first real trial court level. I know, obviously, on the federal level, Supreme Court is our highest court. That's not the case in New York State. Our highest court is the New York State Court of Appeals in Albany. So the Supreme Court, whether I serve in Onondaga County, Oswego, Jefferson, wherever I'm placed by the judge, um, I would be overhearing cases regarding matrimonials. It could be employment law matters. It could be habeas corpus. It could be civil rights type things that are Article 78 proceedings, which are administrative reviews of agency decisions. But you'd be surprised. My practice of mental hygiene legal service, we do a tremendous amount of work in Supreme Court. And that's not what I think when people think of Supreme Court, they don't think of mental hygiene, but they really should. We have over 10 judges that hear our cases because we have such a huge volume. And we're in Supreme Court several times a week. I myself have handled literally thousands of cases in Supreme Court during my 22 years at Mental Hygiene Legal Service. And we represent individuals, like I said, in the psychiatric units and whether or not they can be forced medicated by the hospital. And all those guardianships, end of life matters, all of those things come in Supreme Court. And the judges listen to our cases on a weekly basis. Our cases have to be heard in a rather timely manner because of the due process rights that are involved.
Okay. And what made you decide to run for this office? What motivates you?
Yes, I mean, I've always wanted to be a judge. It's something that I've come from a family of attorneys, and it's something I actually promised my parents that I would do someday. My parents are now deceased. And I have a fantastic position as the director of mental hygiene legal service and working for the court system and the appellate division. But I know that I can give more to the community. I've always been very community minded, always trying to give back. And I know when I see different proceedings, I know I could be very effective on the bench. I believe I possess the temperament and having worked with, have handled most difficult clients and difficult cases. I'm ready to really serve our community in this manner and to make sure that all the litigants have their opportunity to be heard and that they feel heard. I think that's key. The decisions may not always be in their favor, but as long as they know that they've been heard, that would be my goal. I would also strive to really be on it, so that the decisions came out in timely manner for litigants because they're waiting for this and they're paying their attorneys to represent them. And so I really would work hard to run a very organized courtroom that is able to handle cases and to make decisions, to make those tough decisions. I've always been someone that's been able to do that. I know who I am and what I stand for, and I'm ready to really make those decisions that maybe other people wouldn't be able to do, because it's necessary for our system to work that we make those decisions. And recently, the mental hygiene law has changed that could potentially bring more cases into the courts. And I think with my years of experience, I could be a real asset to the court in that regard as well.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? What has changed and what sorts of cases do you mean?
Sure, sure. So mental hygiene law, Governor Hochul signed the legislation that would allow for an expansion of what we call the Article 9 statute of the mental hygiene law, which pertains to individuals that are committed or retained on a psychiatric unit. And it now has been expanded to include individuals that may be homeless. I understand it's to probably hope to get them connected with services in the community that if they come through, there may be a mental health component there that's they're causing their homelessness, and it would come through the psychiatric units. But I think my experience would be able to really analyze those cases and to really be able to make the determination of whether or not they're just homeless or is there a mental health component there. I think if we bring everybody through, it could really clog up the courts and the psychiatric units. And I think I would be able to really analyze those situations based on the evidence before me to make the tough decision of whether or not the person required further treatment or if they could be released back to the community.
Okay.
Mhm.
And what would you like voters to know about the qualifications you bring to this?
I
What
think
do they
really
know?
the huge thing for myself, Lisa,
Mhm.
is my experience. Having practiced law, being a graduate of the University at Buffalo Law School in 2000, I've been practicing law for close to 25 years. And over those years, I've grown tremendously. Like I said, having started at legal aid and then being at mental hygiene and rising all the way up to being the director of my state agency. I've learned a tremendous amount, especially even in the last decade. I could not have done this, that first decade, because you really are taking on serious matters that litigants are bringing. And I think I've seen so many issues and dealt with so many cases and worked with so many clients that I think that's huge. And I think also my temperament, like I said, working with, individuals with disabilities, I've always been able to communicate effectively with my clients to help to bring back forth what's the best interest, what's the legal standard, and really help the client make the tough decisions that are necessary for themselves. And I think that's huge. I think we have a judge that's patient, that's organized, that's there for the public, the community, and the litigants. And I think that's something that I would definitely do. I would put my community first before myself, and make sure my courtroom was run in a manner that really took care of the community and was there making good decisions, sound decisions, because decisions at the trial court level need to be made right at that level, because a case that goes on to appeal can last for over a year. So I can assure that anyone that votes for me, if I'm successful, my decisions are going to be based on the rule of law. And that's going to be my sole guide. What the law is, analyzing it, applying the facts, and reaching that conclusion that's based on the law before me. And if you get the decisions right at the trial level, that's what the litigants need. And that they're not having all these expenses of having to go to an appellate court and having their case delayed or tied up for over a year, and then their lives and impacted as a result. So I think that's a really a part of it. And then my overall, just being in my integrity. I've worked my entire life to build a strong reputation. I'm also a professor. I have my degree as a social studies secondary education teacher, but I always wanted to stay connected with that. And I really truly believe my teaching skills will be effective on the bench as well when I'm communicating my decisions, but also in how I approach my caseload, managing a high caseload volume right now, that I will be able to run my chambers in that same manner using the techniques and the skill set that I learned as a teacher.
Excellent. And so my last question for you is for anyone out there who might be interested in getting involved in your campaign, and if they want to help, how can they do that?
Yes, thank you for asking that. It's huge. Yes, if people could really check out my Facebook page, which is Snyder Fortino for Supreme Court. Also, my website is the same thing. But really, if they could follow us on this campaign trail and get involved in the different events that we may be having, or sharing that with their family members to get the message out, it's very important at this time. The judiciary are very important, as we've seen in our local politics. We need to really have judiciary that have that respect, that have that temperament, that can make those tough decisions because tough decisions need to be made. And the judiciary is that checks and balances, and it's important for the person in that position to do that. But folks, if they would like a sign, they can go to my website and request one. That would be very helpful. But just overall, getting out to vote, whether it be early voting, if they have friends or peers or their colleagues that are not registered, to have them get registered, because the numbers, we need to have the numbers to make the election happen and to change the tide of what we've been currently experiencing.
And this is one of those cases too where someone's vote makes a bigger difference in these local
Yes.
elections.
Yes. I think
And
sometimes people think, oh, I worry about the presidential race. Every election, every position matters. And the judiciary is very important this year. We do have four spots open. So we really need to get everyone out and vote and select the candidates and really get people into office that are going to serve our community well. And I believe I will certainly do that.
thank you so much for your time today. We'll share for everyone below the link to your website and the Facebook page. And just a reminder to everyone out there, if you find this content helpful, please give it a like and please subscribe to our channel so that you can hear from all of our great candidates. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa.